It's Brian Preston, the money guy.
We just talked about buying individual stocks, and you get so confident about it. By the way, it doesn't just stop with individual stocks. I want to talk about the next concept, which is overconfidence bias. And we see this with all kind of investments. And we have a perfect example here with real estate buyers.
Yeah, check out what this guy says all of us ought to be doing with our dollars. Flipping houses changed my perspective on everything. Can never get a job again because this is so powerful. One of these houses pays more than my old career would in a whole year.
Now look at this. This is the part that blows my mind. 20 flips a year, making $75,000 would equal $1.5 million. I just think that slide blows my mind because you realize he just said one house is more than he made in his entire year in his previous job. But yet somehow, he thinks he's going to get to do 20 flips, make just as much profit. There's a lot of ifing and wishing, because I think that this is actually the recipe for disaster if you're not careful.
Well, I think it's what's really interesting. I think about how many real estate transactions I've done in my life, whether it be for investment purposes or even for personal purposes. They don't happen quick. Generally speaking, closings are not a quick thing. Real estate is not a fast-moving thing. In order for you to flip 20 flips a year, that's almost flipping 2 houses every single month. And it's not just getting through the process of doing that. Everyone has to work well. You have to make $75,000 on each one. I just don't know that it works quite that well. I don't know that the average person, the normal person, has that kind of success and that kind of consistency when it comes to flipping real estate.
Well, it also seems so simple. And we all know real estate has friction costs. And let's face it, banks don't exactly give you money unless you show you don't really need money. So that it's just a lot into that. Yes, he got lucky he had one good flip. And now he's assuming that every flip is going to be just as good as that first. By the way, we've done this too, Bo. Stock options.
Oh, yeah.
The worst thing that can happen when you come up with a concept is to make money on your first transaction, because then you get this overconfidence bias because you extrapolate as a human that you can do this over and over again when maybe you just got lucky on that first one.
Yeah, overconfidence is simply when we perceive our own abilities or our own intelligence to be greater than they actually are. We begin to believe that we have more control over outcomes than is likely there. And I think we all suffer from this. I think everybody falls into this trap of thinking more highly of themselves than perhaps they should.
Well, we have a saying around here is we don't think the villains or the victims ever win.
That's right.
But we also know just human nature is, in all of our minds, we are the victor. We are the hero of the story. So I think just that sheer fact that we have this overconfidence on how good we are, and this stat cracks us up when we cover this, is that 65% of people think they're smarter than the average person. It's back to that hero mentality. We all probably overestimate how good we are at stuff.
Yeah, I think what's really interesting is there have been studies that have found that the more intelligent you are, the higher your actual level of intelligence, the more you recognize how much you don't know, the more you recognize all the things that you still need to learn. I think if more of us operated, especially in the financial world, from that perspective, that maybe I don't know every answer, maybe I can't control every outcome, maybe everything I touch is not going to be an absolute success, it would affect and impact how we go about making financial decisions in our day-to-day life.
Yeah, and I would we've already covered it, but flipping homes, if you have overconfidence, you're more likely to jump in the deep end too soon on complicated investments that are far from passive, like real estate. I think you're also more likely to try to time the market.
We see it all the time.
Because we all know timing the market is next to impossible, yet you see people doing it constantly. And then let's talk about the individual stock buying or active mutual funds. They always, typically, if you go out on a long-term perspective, underperform just buying in the broad markets.
Yeah, it's really interesting. A lot of people say, hey, I'm not going to try to time the market. Yeah, I recognize I can't do that, but you know what I can do? I can go select the managers that are better than the others. I can go select the people that can outperform. I can pick the right horses. I may not be able to run the race myself, but man, I can get behind the horses. And when we look at the actual data, this is from the Spiva survey as of the end of 2021, over the last 10 years, the last decade, 86% of domestic equity funds underperform their comparison index, meaning that you would have likely been better off by just buying the index itself than trying to pick the active manager whose mandate was to go out there and beat the index.
What I love about this is if you can understand this concept early, you don't go waste the mental calories of trying to go strike through all the analytics and figuring things out. You don't have to go through all the emotional baggage that you get from getting attached to individual stocks. Just buy the broad markets and enjoy the success that innovation and growth brings.